we have to get into some of this Cavs stuff, Jason. It's been a big week. It's been a big season for the Cavaliers so far, and anyone who supports the Cleveland Cavaliers has gotten maybe the best present possible this season, the emergence of one Evan Mobley. We've talked about it a little bit on the show, Jason. We talked about on Monday's show, Saturday's game against Philly maybe being his most complete all-around game of his career. But let's dive a little deeper into the evolution of one Evan Mobley. Jason, when you look at where Evan is right now on December 25th, 2024, compared to his first 3 years with the Cavs, compared to the beginning of the season, why do you think this was the right timing for the culmination of all the potential in Evan Mobley to show itself kind of in one massive leap? It wasn't necessarily a step-by-step process. It feels like he took that giant leap. Why now?
That's a good question. We talked about on the show yesterday. I do think the coaching change obviously had a lot to do with it. And Kenny coming in, Kenny bringing fresh ideas and new concepts, and more of an offensive-minded coach over JB. I also think a lot of the credit, like I said yesterday, a lot of the credit goes to Evan himself for finally taking that step. Like a lot of things that he's doing this year, they've been asking him to do for years, just in terms of being more aggressive, not necessarily placement on the court, but just being aggressive, having the ball in his hands, attacking the basket. They've wanted him to sort of be demonstrative, and they wanted him to sort of call for the ball, and they wanted him to be aggressive in the paint. And part of it may just be like, it's cliche, but everybody develops on their own timeline, and everybody develops in stages. And for him, it probably took a year longer than people thought. But, how many times do we say on the show, hey, look, it's supposed to come in year 3. And if it doesn't come in year 3, a lot of times it may not come at all. Well, that's not necessarily true for everybody, though. And Evan's showing that. I think that, just because most guys sort of take that leap by year 2 or year 3 doesn't mean it's for everybody. He was only 19 when he came in the league. He did have a lot to learn. He is reserved. He doesn't say a lot. And it clicks when it clicks for guys. And just because it didn't happen in year 3, this is probably a good test case going forward for other guys that, hey, listen, Evan Mobley, it was year 4. It's not necessarily a 3 years and bust thing.
I think there's a number of factors that play into this. Confidence is a two-way street. Your coach has to have confidence in you to be able to do certain things. Then you have to have confidence in yourself to be able to execute.
Yeah.
My coach could have told me, Mike, we have confidence for you to go down in the post and try and post up people 5 times a game. And the confidence I'd have in myself is not a freaking chance. So, yes, it goes both ways. Kenny Atkinson has asked and instilled the confidence in Evan Mobley to do more things in his game. And I think Evan, as he matures into an adult, for lack of a better word, has now some self-belief that I just don't think he had before. You can even tell in his – and this is going to sound cliche, but Jason, you can back me up on this. Or not cliche, but silly, but you can back me up on this. When Evan speaks post-game now, you can be 5 feet away and still hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
And I know that may sound silly, but I'm telling you guys, Evan Mobley, for the first 3 years of his career, and I was only in the locker room last year, so I only have that to base off. You could ask him a question after a 45-point performance, and his answer would be, yeah, it was really good. We had a really good game. I thought I played really well. And if you weren't standing this close to the microphone, you wouldn't be able to hear him. And now, he's still not the loudest guy. He's not one of the ones in the Cavs locker room throwing jokes back and forth at each other, interrupting interviews. But he certainly is not scared of the camera or scared to project his voice in a way he was a few years ago. I also think another massive factor in this is just the space on the court. And Evan Mobley has a little bit of a post-up game. We've seen it. He's developed even more of a post-up bag this season. He had a turnaround jump shot on Saturday against Philadelphia that, frankly, I didn't know was in the arsenal. And that comes from a post-up setting. But now with the floor being more spaced than ever, and his touches starting further away from the basket than they did in the first 3 years of his career, he's getting to show us more of the things that he probably did in high school and in AAU, and slightly less, but still to a higher extent than he did in his first 3 years of the Cavs at USC, that sometimes you have to see it to know it's there. When they drafted him, they knew this was there with the constructed offense that JB had. There wasn't space to show it off. And Mobley, to his credit, never deviated from what the coaches asked. And the coaches with the JB Bickerstaff regime didn't ask him to do much on offense. Under Kenny Atkinson, they're asking him to do a lot more. And he's showing us night in and night out that he's not just capable of doing that. He's capable of probably even more than we've seen thus far.
Yeah, he's going to continue to grow. He's going to continue to get better. Your point is a sound one about how soft he would talk. He also had Kevin Love syndrome, where he would stare at the floor the whole time. Not always, but quite often he's constantly looking down, and that's something they've been working with him on. He's leaving marketing money on the table. He's only going to help himself. The more marketable he is, the more, it may not be his personality, but if he can just show a little bit more, he can start getting, whether it's locally, probably not nationally at this point, but locally, you can start getting more endorsement deals. You just have to be out there. You just have to show a little bit more of your personality. And that's one thing that they've been working with him with. And we talked about yesterday on the show, or Monday on the show, about his usage rate and how high his usage rate has been. And, I made the point that with not only is his usage rate going up, but Darius is playing better. Mm-hmm. So when you play with two ball dominant guards, it's hard to get oxygen for yourself. So not only is he trying to enlarge his game, but he's doing so while going against the current of two guys who often play with the ball in their hands. And it's not an easy thing to do. And, I mentioned it briefly on the show, but go back to the Kyrie, LeBron, Kevin championship year. Kevin's usage rate when he was in Minnesota was around 29. And then his first year in Cleveland, it dipped to 21, which is a massive, massive cut. And then the year they won the title, their second year together, his usage rate was almost right around where Evans is now. And the only reason where I think that's relevant is because Kyrie and LeBron always played with the ball in their hands. And still Kevin had a usage rate right around 23, 24. Like, it's almost identical to where Evans is doing it now. So it can be done. Like this formula can work. And the Cavs have had success with it in the past, and they're having success with it now.
I think this formula not only can work, Jason, does work. I think the teams that have one heliocentric ball handler, a la Luka or Russ Westbrook back in the day, who have a usage rate, in the 40s, getting closer to 50, I think that's a lot easier to defend than a team that has multiple options that can run offensive sets and start really whatever they want to do on offense through multiple different players. And I just go back to the game on Saturday against Philly. Against Utah on Monday, Evan played fine. He had a bunch of alley-oops and kind of put back dunks. He dunked on a guy with his left hand for the second game in a row. It wasn't as nice as this one.
Because he's left-handed.
I still can't get over this one. Cross, drive, 2 steps, yam. Like, I can't get over that. The one on Monday was not to that level, but he's kind of showing his ability to go, and I want to make a joke here, Jason, to his left hand and finish with a lot of power. And I know someone on this show, not named Mike Lucas, thought he was lefty for a reason.
I said that a minute ago. I said that's because he's left-handed. That's why he's dunking.
So you're getting a little validation here on your incorrect take. We actually talked to Evan on Monday after the game about his ability to go both ways and how that opens up some different things for the offense. And Donovan talked about how Evan is unlocking that facet of his game. He said, listen, Evan's now getting to the point where he's comfortable going off the dribble at guys each way. And that means he has to start thinking more about where he wants to start with the ball, because if he starts on the left side and he wants to go left, well, then he has the baseline to help. So now he has to reposition himself further up the wing so he has more room if he wants to attack the left. And if he's going to go to his weak hand, we as a team have to know, well, that's not his strong passing hand. So we have to rotate and take a few extra steps over so he has a better angle for a kick out pass. All the X's and O's of like high level basketball happen on the fly. That in game 30 for the Cavs on Monday night, they're starting to figure out those problems in real time. And if you can start figuring out those problems in game 30, you have 52 other games to figure out what can and can't work for the playoffs as opposed to experimenting then. And it's incredible that Evan Mobley, it took 3 years. You're right. Everyone develops at their own pace, but he went from crawling to running 5Ks. And I still think he can become a marathon runner. That's how much I think his ceiling is. That's how much I think of Evan Mobley. That's how high I think his ceiling is. But it feels like he took 3 years. Perfect example, Jason. I know you're not a video game player, but did you ever play like Super Smash Brothers back in the day?
No. Your back in the day and my back in the day are different. I was probably a dad when you were playing video games.
Fair. For everyone else out there who knows exactly what I'm talking about, in Super Smash Brothers, a bunch of guys had these moves where if you held B, if you just tap B, it'd be a punch. If you hold B, it like powers up the move, but it takes time, right?
Yeah.
And then like Samus, he has his little laser beam. If you just hit B, it's just a little tiny tennis ball. But if you hold it, it grows and grows and grows to a comet, and then you can shoot it, and it's a much more powerful thing. it feels like Evan Mobley had just been holding the B button and holding his potential growth for 3 years. There's just this slow, steady, and now he's unleashed it at once instead of these constant little mini improvements. He had some improvements over the first 3 years. Let's not pretend he didn't get any better, but the jump from year 3 to year 4 is significantly bigger than the jumps combined from year 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 than we've seen. It's been awesome, and it's been a lot of fun because when he's at his best, Cavs are really freaking hard to defend, Jason, and even harder to beat.
You've been hanging around G too long. Some of these Dragon Ball Z references.
None of that was Dragon Ball Z, for the record. Not one of those was Dragon Ball Z.
No, I'm saying it. Never mind.
But last thing on Mobley, we'll move on.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything from him that you didn't think he was capable of?
No, not really. If anything, I think I always thought that he could get there. I wasn't sure that he would. By the end of last year, I was like, man, I don't know. But I guess maybe his ability to put the ball on the floor and attack as aggressive as he is and as good as he is at it, that surprises me a little bit. I thought, how many times did I say on the show, Evan, where are you most comfortable on the floor? Go there and stand there and we're going to get it to you. And now he doesn't have to play that way. Now he can take the ball wherever you give it to him and he's going to get to a spot. And he can create for himself better than I thought. Based on where he ended last year, he got there a lot faster than I thought. Just his ability, I guess, to just create for himself. I mean, they could run inverted pick and rolls for him now. They can do all sorts of things that they couldn't do before.